Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Next, we have Dr. Deborah Barnhart, who is the CEO of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, and she has a really important message for us on how to equip students for the 21st century and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I changed the title of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about space as a steam engine. I mean, I am totally inspired every day by what goes on at the Space and Rocket Center. So if we could go ahead and bring up the presentation. I brought a couple of artifacts today to show you. The Space and Rocket Center is home to about 80% of Dr. Wernher von Braun's personal archives. And of course, as you know, Dr. von Braun was the German scientist who led America and mankind to the moon. Hard to believe, but in 2019, it'll be 50 years since we set foot on the moon. And I'm going to tell you what, he was a Renaissance man. He was an artist. He wrote his own music. He played cello. He played keyboards. And I have personally seen his home library. I'm still in touch with his wife and his daughters. And his bookshelves are not full of scientific journals. His bookshelves are full of literature and art and music. So I am one of the many cheerleaders that the arts have in Alabama, even though I'm closely associated with STEM education and the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville. What you see here on this first slide is an image done by the very famous space artist Chesley Bonestell. He did the art for the War of the Worlds. He passed away at 98 in 1986. Karen, can I ask you to come and help me? I'm going to ask my colleague Karen from the fabulous Fantasy Playhouse in Huntsville, Alabama, if you would just slip those on. I'm going to have her carry around a cocktail tray that Chesley Bonestell painted for Maria and Wernher von Braun. And I'm going to have her bring that around and show that to you, just to show you how incredibly intimate von Braun and the German rocket scientists were with the arts. Today, Huntsville has a symphony that is 60 years old because the German scientists thought that we needed music in our community. We have an art museum. We have, how many theaters, Karen? Do we have 5, 6? 6 theater companies in Huntsville. And it's all because those people who you think of as rocket scientists were really Renaissance people. They were very well-developed individuals who cared deeply about the arts. We try to continue that tradition today. As you know, we're the #1 tourist attraction in the state of Alabama. We're the only science center that is a #1 tourist attraction in its state. And we are the only NASA visitor center that is a #1 tourist attraction in the state. Poor Kennedy has to put up with the mouse. We also are proud to have the largest object owned by the Smithsonian, which is the Saturn V moon rocket, not the space shuttle that you see here, but the National Historic Saturn V moon rocket. It would have been Apollo 19 had we continued our missions to the moon back in the 60s and 70s. But it is the only National Historic Landmark because Huntsville is the place where it was designed, built, and managed. There's another one in Kennedy, there's another one in Houston, but those are not National Historic Landmarks. So the art and design of space has all started out of Huntsville, Alabama. That's where NASA was formed in 1959. And even today, we are designing America's next great ship, the Space Launch System. That vehicle looks a lot like the Saturn V that you see standing in the middle. Then it adds to each side the solid rocket boosters that you see alongside the Space Shuttle program. And that vehicle will take your children and mine and our grandchildren back to the moon and onto Mars. We're also an official visitor center for the Redstone Arsenal, and as of 2 weeks ago, for TVA. Because of 9/11, TVA no longer can allow people to go into the dams and down into the power rooms that are so amazing. And so we're going to help them tell their energy story as well at the Space and Rocket Center. And of course, we're a very proud Smithsonian affiliate. Oops, sorry. Me and the clicker are getting to know each other here. It's our first date. We haven't made out yet. Dude, we really are having a problem. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. So there's the National Historic Landmark. We consider this America's great classroom. And when Arnie Duncan the head of the American Education Institution, the National Education Association, last year visited us. He said, "You can't beat this classroom." That gives me a responsibility not only to show people the STEM education possibilities, but most importantly, to inspire them. Go ahead, please. What we do with math education at the Space and Rocket Center is to take what I call little treasure hunt sheets. And we take the National Core Curriculum Standards and the Alabama College and Career Ready Standards for each of the grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and Algebra 1. And we give that to the students when they come in the door, and we have them do a little treasure hunt. So they go around the rocket. This rocket is 60 feet tall, and that rocket is 5 feet tall, or you're 5 feet tall. How tall is that rocket? So they begin to understand design principles and mathematic principles. So by the time they finish their visit with us, they will have touched every major math core curriculum standard for their grade. I can't teach them 4th or 5th grade math in a visit, but I can send them back to the classroom seeing the relationship between math and design and art and STEAM education. Go ahead, please. We've just opened the International Space Station exhibit, Science on Orbit. As you may know, Johnson Space Center takes care of the space station itself, the house that is Space Station. But Huntsville controls all of the science that's going on board Space Station. And we have now opened 2 modules that you can walk through. And the centerpiece of that exhibition is not all the things that you can stick your hands in and do and control the arms that are outside with the television or even saying hello to Robonaut. The centerpiece of this exhibition is when you look up through the cupola and you see the beauty of the Earth out of that cupola. Go ahead, please. We're all inspired, and we've all seen the images from the Hubble telescope, and I could have filled up this entire talk today with the beautiful artistic images that we've gotten from the Hubble telescope and that we've gotten from the space station, all of those Earth views. In fact, this morning on CBS, they had a film of the Earth going around and how beautiful it is with the lightning and with the lighting that's all over the world. One of our graduates from Space Camp, by the way, how many Space Camp graduates are here? Yay, teachers, there are a lot of teacher graduates. Fantastic. We have now had 700,000 graduates from Space Camp. I was at University of Alabama over the weekend talking to their engineering students, and they told me they've only had 250,000 students graduate from Alabama. This is one of our graduates. We've had 5 astronauts graduate. Even though graduating astronauts is not our mission at the Rocket Center, of course, we're very proud when they go on to become an astronaut. This is one of them, Smith Cristoforetti. She's an Italian Air Force major. You may remember that they sent up an espresso machine last year for one of the astronauts, and this is her. Here she's teaching about how to make food in space. And we take inspiration from everything that goes on at Space Station. Go ahead, please. I hate that I can't do my clicker. It's terrible. We try to encourage everybody that works at the Rocket Center to be involved in art, design, and play. And this was something one of our chefs made up the other day. So each morning when the students come through to get their food, they're likely to see some kind of design with the food. Go ahead. We always have an art exhibition at the Space and Rocket Center. It's never just the artifacts exhibition. We always have an additional art exhibition there. I was an English major and a music minor as an undergraduate. And of course, I went on for advanced degrees in other areas. But English and music stay very close to my heart, and it's very important to me that we inspire people. And of course, as we all know, art inspires life. We have just done 101 Rocket City inventions. An invention begins with what? A drawing. It always begins with a drawing, with an idea, with a cocktail napkin, with a small sketch. I tell everybody that works for me, if I ask you to do a project, don't go away and do it and come back 3 weeks later. Come in here and give me an ugly draft. Give me a cocktail napkin. Let's keep talking about it while you're working on it so you don't waste time. So I think that visual information and communication is really important. And we saw, as we looked through the 8,000 patents that had been submitted from the Huntsville area from 1900 to the present day, and we went through and selected 101 of those that are important. Every single one of them, of course, on the patent has a drawing. So it has the art. We're going to have this winter another traveling exhibition. You know, we have traveling exhibitions coming into the Space and Rocket Center. We currently have science fiction, science future, and it's super cool because you can beam yourself up and disappear. It's really like Star Wars, it's really great, like Star Trek. This winter we'll have the world premiere of an Italian exhibition called Archimedes coming in. So we're going to have a toga party at the Rocket Center a little bit later in the winter. And we feel that it's very important to show design, history, and of course, mathematical and engineering education. We currently also have an exhibition that we created with artist Kathy Chan called Celestial Dreams, the Art of Space Jewelry. Kathy Chan is an amazing internationally known artist who lives in Huntsville, who over about 40 years has done many, many space-related pieces. This particular piece is her Mars piece, because she always remembered as a child the little green men that were supposed to come from Mars, and she was inspired by this. This is my favorite piece. It's called The Meteor Shower. And the beauty of this and its relationship to the cosmos, all of her pieces are stunning, and she is going to allow us to travel that exhibition. It's currently in front of the Smithsonian, taking a look if they'd like to travel it for us or whether we'll do it ourselves. But this just shows how art can inspire everyone in our journey into space. This is her space shuttle piece. It is in fact a necklace. You can see the curvature at the top and the space shuttle. And then the piece that hangs down along the side can also be taken apart and worn as earrings. She's won many international awards for the construction of her pieces so that they can be used in many unusual ways. This one was a memorial to the tornadoes of Huntsville. Can you imagine a more beautiful memorial than this? This piece is about 4 or 5 inches tall. It's a gorgeous piece. It can be worn as a brooch or as a necklace. The space station itself, this is a picture of Building 9 at Johnson Space Center where astronauts train. Now, because we're a NASA Visitor Center, we have very authentic training at the Space Camp and Academy. We're able to mimic what they do. We talk with them. We go to see their modules. And then, of course, we bring those down to a layman level as we train our teachers and students in the programs at Space Camp and Academy. But take a look at this building and how sterile it is. So when we do our training at Space Camp, we try to add a little more inspiration. You can see the star field here, and you can see it even better. And I just have a heavy hand, I guess. Darn it. All right, are we going to compete? Okay. All right, so you can see the star field there. Go ahead to the next. Let me try. Okay, you did it. We try to inspire them. We're teaching them technically what it is they have to do. For example, the high school students get a resort course in scuba, and they go in our water tank. They train in a microgravity environment of water, and then when it's time for them to go out for their spacewalk, they go in the tank and do it in the microgravity environment. Here, students are hanging from harnesses from the ceiling to simulate a microgravity environment where action-reaction becomes one of the most difficult problems that you have. When you push off, you continue to go away unless you're tethered or you're holding on. So we're trying to inspire them with the macro environment that will make them see that this is not just a technical enterprise. This is an enterprise that has beauty and wonder in it, and to go home inspired by what they've done. I can't make it work. It doesn't like me. Go ahead, please. I think that macro immersion that the arts do so well, especially in the performing arts, is critical to the learning that we're able to do at Space Academy. Every one of these students come to us with a handheld device that's got a better flight simulator than I've got, promise you. They all have better ones at home on their computers. But when I put them in that spacesuit, when I hang them from the ceiling, when I put them in the water, or when I sit them in a cockpit with their hand controller and their rudders and their pedals, that gives them the kind of education that changes their worldview about STEAM education, the way things are designed, the human factors involved. They're always surprised by how difficult it is to make good human factors designs on board the space station or in the cockpits. And in our robotics class, they also encounter what I call the global clash. In all of our programs, we have students from every one of the American states, all 50 states, all of the provinces, as well as last year, 68 foreign countries. So when they come to camp, and in fact, frankly, we have more students from China than we have from Tennessee, literally. So, they're going to come there and they're going to encounter other cultures, other people who understand. We had about 500 students from Dubai early in the year, and we had this gorgeous double rainbow outside. And they were eating in a place like this, and they all ran outside with their cameras and started taking pictures because they'd never seen a rainbow. I mean, it doesn't rain that much in the Emirates. So it's just amazing. And the students from Costa Rica, 2 weeks before that, saw snow for the first time. So you never know what you're going to see at Space Camp and at the Rocket Center. But you certainly are going to come encounter with students from around the world and with other cultures and with other ideas. Similarly, in our robotics program, what we do here is very unusual. It's not just Lego robotics like all your children have at home. What we do is in 1 week, we have them build and fly an airborne robot, so a UAV, UAS, a drone, a terrestrial robot, either earthbound or planetary, and an underwater robot, so that they understand the cross-cutting nature of robotic technologies and its applications across many disciplines, not simply as a Lego tabletop toy. As I mentioned, we have students from, I guess it's 69, not 68. 20% of our students are from all over the world. This is sort of a list of the countries and where they come from, just to give you an idea of the top 10 states and the top 10 countries. And every one of the teams that comes there, whether it's an adult team, corporate team, an educator team, or a young people's team, design their own mission patch, bring together the people from all over the world or all over the country who are on their team. They sit and they crystallize the mission. They crystallize the feeling of those people that they're there with for 6 days. And their mission is the highlight of their week. In fact, we even have the patches embroidered, and they can take them home if they like. But these are just some of the cool team patches. I love this Atlas one with the star. So art is certainly a part. And of course, every crew that goes to space station or goes up on any mission also designs their own mission patch. We know what we're doing works. 88% of our students go back and take another STEM class. 71% of them are now in a career field that's related to a high-tech subject. And of those people, 2 out of 3 say that Space Camp inspired them to do that. This is just a NASA chart showing the elements of our journey to Mars. And I just wanted you to see how beautiful and aesthetic it is. They could have made this a black and white chart with lots and lots of words on it, but they didn't. They showed us how science, exploration, and technology combine with the beauty of the planets and the spheres to construct that journey to Mars. And Von Braun was no dummy when it came to arts and inspiration. This was one of his biggest allies, Walt Disney. Any of you remember watching the Disney Channel, the early Disney television pieces that were inspired by Von Braun and the work that he was doing in space? Even Jules Verne. Where would we be in space exploration if we didn't have Jules Verne to inspire us, both from the literature and from the drawings that were there? This is just an image of Von Braun's piece that he wrote, L'Idole from Barbier for piano. We had it performed at the Space and Rocket Center during his 100th birthday celebration. And Fantasy Playhouse, by the way, joined us last year for a children's concert. We had a free children's concert, and they came in and did Peter and the Wolf at the Rocket Center with us. So we try to always do, this is a picture of that concert going on there. I'm sorry, we don't have the fantasy part on this. Karen, please, you can see the tree, forgive me. Go ahead, please. Can we go back one? And as I mentioned, we have all those graduates and the 5, by the way, all of our 5 astronauts are women. I didn't, had nothing to do with that, but anyway, they are. And one of our graduates that we are incredibly proud of is our own Susanna Phillips, who's a Metropolitan Opera star. Last year, when we gave her our Hall of Fame medal, she said, "Wow, you don't get these at the Met." So, they come from the Space Camp and they go on. Elon Musk is a graduate of the Space Academy. So, our graduates go on to excel in many, many fields, not just STEM education fields. And I feel that the inspiration is the most important thing we do. How many of you saw The Martian? Great film, very accurate, very inspiring, and very helpful to us in trying to train the next generation. I think one of the ultimate objects of art that has been created in the space exploration world is, in fact, the Voyager Golden Record cover. This went out with Voyager 1 in 1977, and it's already left our solar system. Think about how many millions and millions and millions and millions of miles it's already gone. And here, not only what's on the record itself, but also the visual representations of how to play the record. So up in the upper left-hand corner, it tells you the timing of this 16 2/3 record. Just below that, that line is the stylus for showing you how to play the record. Down below in the corner is a planetary representation of the pulsars, showing you where Earth is. Up in the right-hand corner is, again, related to the frequency of sound that you'll hear when you play the record. And below that, images that you could see if you had the right kind of device. It's the frequency of the line periodicity for the images. But on the record is not the technical description of how we went to the moon. On the record is the sound of babies crying and people talking and Mozart and Beethoven and Chuck Berry. It's the sounds of us, of life. It's the sounds of art from our planet and the things that we've achieved as a culture and as a race. I love Von Braun. I feel that I'm Von Braun's handmaiden. He's thought of many things that we still have not yet even done, including a centrifugal space station that we could stay on for a long, long time without losing bone density. And so because I'm so inspired by Von Braun, and because, you know, he said that sitting somewhere today in a public schoolhouse preparing for an adventure are these people to whom we shall pass the baton. And this first lap of the race is ours, and we shall not falter. So I want to convince you thoroughly that art is the inspiration for all of space exploration. And in order to do that, I brought here today to show you the notebook first drawn by Wernher von Braun when he was 15 years old that shows the image of the spaceship that he would plan to take into the future. Karen, you want to help me again? You can see in this drawing, so it's tied to this thing. And you just have to support it on either side. I'll have these around later too if you want to see them, but take it all around, let people see that closely. You can see that von Braun, sure, he didn't know all about the thrust and the, you know, liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, and he didn't know about everything that he needed to know when he was 15 years old, but he started with a drawing. He started with the inspiration that he could sit there and figure it out if he drew it out and laid it out himself. And it's a very detailed drawing. It talks about the food they need to take on their journey. It even goes so far as to talk about the gold laminate on the helmet so that the sun's reflection wouldn't blind you when you were out in space without any atmosphere. So I just wanted you to be able to see this very precious artifact from our collection that shows that you've got to start with inspiration and you got to start with some kind of a drawing or an idea. So we are in your corner. We at the Space and Rocket Center love the arts. We think it's very important. We are not there to make necessarily STEM graduates and astronauts. We are there to make whole human beings who can excel to be whatever they want to be and to create whatever they want to create in life. Thank you for inviting me. You're a very kind audience. Thank you.
Before you leave us, does anybody have any questions?
While you're coming up, I'll say one thing about your ability to interface with the art of the planet. There are two programs that we run at the Space and Rocket Center. One is the Smithsonian's Youth Captures the Colorful Cosmos. Any classroom or child or any person can request from us an image of anything in the universe that we can see with a telescope. It will be taken at the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory that night or the next night that it's clear enough to get an image of that object, so let's say the Pleiades or Mars, whatever. And then they will send it to the person or child or group and instruct you about how to colorize it. So of course there's no color in deep space. Even though you see all these wonderful Hubble images that are colored, they're not really colored in space. They'll teach you how to colorize it so that you can see the gases and so forth. And then you can download that for use in your own classroom. Similarly, the second program that everyone in every school group can be involved in is Space Camp, we're operating the camera on the International Space Station, the Sally Ride Earth Cam. which takes images of the Earth, the ones that you see all the time. We're operating that camera, and any school group or other group, scouts, churches, whatever, can request an image of any place on the planet. So if it's Antarctica or your home or wherever, and next time space station goes around and crosses that area, we'll take the image and we'll send it down to your classroom so you can even compare it to previous images and so forth, and take a look at your planet, the art and the beauty of both space and of our planet. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, I was an English major and a music minor as an undergraduate, so I'm all in your camp for sure, definitely. And we're going to be doing a reenactment coming the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. Every single day at the Rocket Center, we're going to do a reenactment of the lunar landing. So we're trying to get into the theater piece of this because so many people weren't born then. Many of you weren't even born, don't even know that story. So it's our job. We should have been doing it from the first day we opened, but we will be doing it for sure by the time the 50th anniversary rolls around. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. They're so inseparable for me personally. I don't even see how you separate them, because all of design, and I'm looking forward to working with the South Carolina school here. All of design has to start with some kind of an aesthetic, and then the aesthetic has to complement the utility of the design. Even today, gosh, I don't know. I think maybe just if the one thing you could do, I'll give you just one thing maybe. The new space launch system that I was talking about that has the big Saturn rocket with the 2 space shuttle solid rocket boosters on either side, they have painted racing stripes on it. And it's the coolest damn thing. Look it up, Space Launch System, and you'll see that, they didn't have to. And in fact, the program manager said, well, they may not actually fly with the racing stripes. But for right now, it's got racing stripes on it. Now, why in the world would they do that if not for inspiration, So let's take a look, show it to your students, and have them see America's next great ship that's going to take them and their children back to the moon and onto Mars. And I think just constantly talking about the integration and rationale of art to design and to engineering and math. I'm going to do an exhibition with the art school in Birmingham. What's the exact name? Alabama School of Fine Arts. We're going to do an exhibition called The Art of Math and the Math of Art. So I think if you can keep that bridge going with all your students, I think that's the best thing you can do for us. Thank you for your question. You all are very kind. Thank you very much.
So next, our originally scheduled speaker couldn't make it. So Miss Lindsay Jones-Lindsay has rearranged her schedule so that she could join us and give us a presentation about the neurobiology of art. Lindsay?
Okay, the people at my table made me get back up here and tell you this. Because we had 60% of the counties of Alabama were sending 10 or fewer children to space camp. 2 years ago, I went to the legislature and I got them to agree to send an educator from every school district through a Space Academy for Educators, which you get 3 hours of graduate credit or 45 CEUs. And it doesn't have to be a STEM teacher. It can be any kind of teacher. So every year, we are bringing one educator from every school district. So that's online right now, spacecamp.com/scholarships. That's online there, and that'll be for this summer, so that is open right now. Secondly, this year, for the first time, we will bring a boy and a girl in middle school from every legislative district. And that program is also opening but closing in just a few days for application. So every legislator gets to nominate a boy and a girl in middle school to come through Space Academy. So we're hoping to keep those two programs going year after year so that we can seed a lot more of the wonder that is Space Camp throughout the rest of the state. Thank you again.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay, and I'm going to be giving you a 15-minute lecture on neurobiology, and I promise that it won't be too complicated, and I know that you've already had a huge dose of science, but I'd like to continue it for just a little bit longer. It's something that's really important to me, so if I get really excited and start talking over your heads, someone raise your hands, and I will back it off just a little bit. But like I said, I really am passionate about this, so I can get pretty excited. Before I begin, I want to tell you a little bit about myself because it's why it's so important to why I'm passionate about the STEAM movement, about incorporating science with the arts. I grew up in Madison, Alabama. I went to Bob Jones High School. After graduating, I attended the University of Alabama, where I received a BA in studio art with a concentration in sculpture. However, I also took a whole bunch of heavy science background. I had a biology minor, and I minored in the computer-based honors program, which is Alabama's premier undergraduate research program. I am currently a second-year MD candidate at the University of South Alabama College of Medicine. So I am not an expert in educating by any means. That's what I leave the experts in the room for. But after 21 years of school and another looming 7 to 9 years more before my practicing physician, I do consider myself to be an expert student. So I'd like to share with you today how I personally have used art to help in my medical education, some of the research that's shown how effective art can be in memory retention, and how you might be able to incorporate some of this into your own programs. So during my studies in medical school, I'm constantly drawing in order to learn. I draw anatomy, I draw neurobiological pathways, which is there on the right. That's a pathway of different motor units through the brainstem. I draw huge drawings, I refer back to them, and I have a whiteboard with about 20 different colors of expo markers, and I draw a picture and I label it and I erase it, and I draw a label and erase, and I do it over and over again until I finally understand what I'm trying to learn. So it might not surprise an entire room full of artists that I use art to learn in medical school, but what might surprise you is that the majority of my classmates do as well. Now, most of my colleagues would probably say they can't even draw a stick figure. I know y'all have heard that, tons of people who are science-based or math-based, they can't draw a stick figure, but most of them are actively seeking out art to learn medicine and science, and I think it's the most awesome thing in medical school. So one of the best descriptions of medical school that I've ever heard is that the amount of information we are trying to absorb is like trying to drink out of a fire hose. Quite frankly, it's impossible, and it's kind of painful. It's not going. There it goes. So to give you kind of a scope, early in my first year, we were learning immunology, and we were assigned a textbook that one of my classmates went through over the course of an entire undergraduate semester. We used the same textbook, went through the entire thing in the same level of detail in 9 days. How is that even possible? Well, the medical student is a very unique creature. We try to find the most efficient means possible to drink from that fire hose without drowning. And most of us have found the most efficient way to learn information is by recalling pictures and recalling art rather than just rote memorization of text out of a textbook, out of a lecture. So our educators are finally starting, or medical educators are starting to finally pick up on this. There are several free YouTube channel professors that literally draw medical and science topics. I encourage any of you to take a look at any of these artists. Some of them are medical professionals, some are professional artists. They have topics that range, but also a lot of high school biology, meiosis, mitosis, a lot of things that your students are going to be covering and that you could incorporate as part of your programs and bridging it with what they're learning in their other classes. My personal favorite is an artist. His name is Armando Hazudungan. He real-time illustrates biology and medicine lectures. So let me give you a little example. When we were in the digestive system, we were learning about energy metabolism. We were given 2 90-minute lectures that were about 70 PowerPoint slides each. In addition, we were assigned several chapters out of very, very dense books with titles, fun titles like Physiology and Atlas of the Human Biology. And instead of using these text-based resources, I watched 3 15-minute live-drawn, live illustrated videos of the same concepts. So Mr. Hazudungan started by drawing the anatomy, then he drew the movements of different components of the food as it's broken down into energy and then distributed throughout the body. Watching someone live literally draw the process as it happens made everything click in a way that a normal lecture did not. Now, just for your information, Mr. Hazudungan is a professional artist. He is not a medical professional. And I say that because I sometimes worry that we get scared as artists that just because we don't necessarily understand a subject, we can't teach it. And that's not necessarily true. He is not a medical professional, but I've learned more about medicine from him than I've learned from some of my professors. Just keep that in mind. And like I said, all of his videos are on YouTube. They're all free. He also has a website where you can purchase these huge pictures that at the end, you can purchase them as posters. So another resource many of my classmates and I use are audiovisual mnemonics to improve memory retention in medical sciences. So when I tell you that I've used cartoons with silly stories to remember the vast amount of information thrown at us during medical school, you might start to worry about the state of your future medical professionals. But when I tell you that a blinded study has shown that the students using this program had an over 300% improvement of long-term recall over students who had not used the mnemonics, maybe that will alleviate some of your worries. Here's an example. This cartoon illustrates the bacterial pathogen E. coli. Now, there are a lot of clinical and molecular properties of this bug that we as medical professionals need to recall at any given time to be able to treat patients. However, the facts are disconnected, they're obscure, they're really, really difficult just to remember. But all of them are illustrated in this cartoon. Let's take a look. So here's an old-fashioned soda shop that just happens to contain all the major characteristics of E. coli. So up in the top left-hand corner, you see a sign that advertises the price of a burger to be $1.57. Well, this is because the main version of E. coli that causes disease is O157H7. So the main way that E. coli causes problems is because it lyses red blood cells, which means it pops red blood cells, and that is why there's a red balloon popping. And the most common way to get E. coli is by eating raw hamburger, which is why that little kid has a hamburger sitting right in front of him. So some of the important characteristics that distinguish E. coli from other bacteria is that it ferments lactose, which is the main sugar found in milk, hence the reason there's a milk carton sitting on the counter. And it's catalase positive, which is just a little fancy term to tell us how it uses different forms of energy. And that's why there's a cat sitting on a bar stool in a soda shop. So every time these characteristics are used in the same bacteria, they use the same pictures. So I don't necessarily have to remember every single type of bacteria that is catalase positive. I just have to think about these different pictures for each of the bacteria, and if I remember seeing a cat somewhere in that picture, I know it's catalase positive. E. coli is also waterborne, which is why there's a water truck sitting outside the window. So these are only a few facts illustrated in this cartoon, and I don't have any of them memorized. Instead, I just recall this one picture, I visualize the parts of it, and it triggers a prompt to recall the information. It seems a little crazy, I know, but research has shown that visual recall is not just a little more effective than simple fact recall, it's grossly more effective. In the most recent research study done on this topic, one group of students was shown a similar cartoon that I just showed you, while another group was given text-based only information study material. The two groups were then tested on their recall of the material immediately after reading it, after 1 week and after 1 month they couldn't look at the information in between those time periods. The percentage difference in scores increased over time, with the visual aid students outperforming the text-based students at free recall at the 1 month time, which means anything they could remember, by 208%, and on a multiple choice test by 331%. 331%. Imagine as if part of your art courses or music courses or dance courses that students can make cartoons that illustrate or dances that illustrate a principle, and that they're learning in their science courses or math or history, and even a month later they can recall that picture, that dance, that music in near perfect detail, the facts that it illustrated. This audiovisual mnemonic concept is not singly useful for medical students. I feel like it can be used for any grade and any subject, especially with young children, with elementary students. I think it's important that our educators use didactic cross-disciplinary teaching concepts with their students. So an area that has received particular attention in education and policy debates is the STEM to STEAM movement, and that is to include arts with science, technology, engineering, and math learning. The emerging STEM to STEAM movement is largely grounded by the effort to incorporate arts with STEM as an equally important and not just a supplementary subject. So STEAM education is based on the principle that STEM and the arts function better together than they do apart. And we in the art world are not surprised by that fact at all. And as a firmly entrenched artistic scientist, I'm absolutely thrilled by the STEAM movement. Art is at its most basic definition inquiry-based. It requires questioning and understanding concepts versus just finding the single answer to a correct question. And there are multiple right answers and multiple right pathways to get to answers in art. Studies have shown that art coursework integrated into science and mathematics allows students to capitalize on the inquiry-based nature of art and apply it to science problems. Without the perspective of arts, they might not have found the answer, but because of this integration, they are able to see there has to be multiple pathways to get to this answer, and so then they can find the correct answer. From a neurobiology perspective, human beings have the ability to learn through visual, auditory, and kinesthetic cues. However, artistic inquiry promotes rigor and creativity, which now enables while also enabling an instructor to teach in multiple ways. This creates more neural pathways in the brain and has a higher probability of retaining knowledge. To come full circle, this is why silly cartoons with cats and popping balloons, which, by the way, does anybody remember what those mean? That's why those cartoons can help a medical student retain an entire chapter's worth of information in a single picture. And that's why your students can use the same concepts of integrating arts with their other coursework to remember the information they have to learn there too. Art is always important for art's sake, but sometimes it's also the best tool in an educator's arsenal for teaching not just the sciences, but math and history and many other subjects as well. Art has had a huge influence on STEM studies, and one of that is through spatial reasoning. I know we mentioned that a little bit earlier today. Spatial reasoning is this concept that understanding and visualizing in the world in 3 dimensions and being able to use this image, it's an innate feature of an artist. And neuroplasticity is a term that refers to this wide range of anatomical and physiological changes at a molecular and biochemical level. When you use your brain to learn or incorporate spatial learning and reasoning, the areas of the brain that control those can literally be grown larger. In this picture here, you see the red that's highlighting the hippocampus. The hippocampus controls learning and memory. And they did a study to compare the hippocampus of London taxi drivers who have extensive navigation experience. Now, these people are very, very well versed in spatial learning because you have to use spatial learning to be able to know where to get to a place without using Siri, which they don't use in London as taxi drivers. So they compare the hippocampus of the London taxi drivers with normal participants, control participants, and the hippocampi were 2 to 3 times larger than control participants. Now, spatial learning can be taught to an adult, but the earlier spatial learning is taught to children, the more extensive those areas of the brain can become, and that's because of the neuroplasticity. I know you've heard before that the younger you introduce a second language, the more fluent that person will become. That's neuroplasticity. So the same holds true to spatial learning. The younger we introduce concepts of imagining objects in 3 dimensions, recalling art, drawing from memory, the stronger that person will be later in life in more than just education, but also a sense of direction, guessing at proportions and sizing, everyday activities that you don't necessarily think about. By far the best way to teach spatial reasoning is through arts, and through the arts, not just drawing, but again, dance, music, anything that can have people using multiple different ways to get to an answer. Having students visualize an object in their minds and recreate it in 2 or 3 dimensions is a hallmark way of developing this trait. And spatial learning is critical for careers like surgery, engineering, and physics, and also the everyday activities like using verbal directions to get to a place, or estimating size and distance and weight. So how exactly can you incorporate art into your students' other subjects to enhance their learning? That I leave to you as educating professionals. But I hope you're able to use some of the science and physiology behind visual and spatial learning and how it's been effectively incorporated into medical education as a guide for your own programs. Thank you. And one other thing, these are some of the resources if you're welcome to take a look at. Armando Hazadung is the artist who draws, the live draws the concepts, and the cartoons that I used were from 2 programs that we use often in medical school called Sketchy Medical and Picmonic.